welcome to the Discipleship on Repeat podcast. Our goal is to entertain, enlighten, and encourage you. We are your hosts, Matt, and I got with me Chris. What's going on, bud?
Not much, Matt. How are you, brother?
Man, happy to be back on the mic this time, and excited to get this episode underway.
Yeah, me too, brother.
Yeah, so we're starting a new series for everybody out there. We are moving on to a series on idols we've been working on here for a while, and this is going to be exciting. We're going to dive into some things that I don't think people are too front of mind about where they're putting their priorities sometimes in life and things that are distracting them from God. So we feel like this is going to be a very impactful series for us, and we hope it's the same for all you listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, really looking forward to this one.
Absolutely, man. So we're going to get started here real quick, but before we do, we got an exciting intro. That's right, folks. It's the left-handed shake of the week. We're going to talk a little bit about how we're impacting other people in our lives, and Chris has got his turn this week.
Yep, sure do. All right, so for the left-handed shake this week, I'm going to talk about one of my former coworkers. My one coworker, I think I've shared stories about him before. He and we frequently talk about our faith and what we're learning in the Word and different message series that we're listening to, learning at church, and just good conversation, really growing as men and growing as leaders of our family. And so this other coworker, he was fairly new, about a year and a half or 2 years ago, came out of a completely different type of work. And so he was just fresh right off the boat. And we were just pulling him straight in, like, all right, here we go, and just taking him under our wing and training him. And our conversations about our faith never stopped. And so we just continued. This guy, he's not a believer, and was very, at first, kind of adamant, like, I don't believe in this, whatever. And so we weren't putting in his face, but just kind of having a conversation like we normally would.
Yeah.
It was just really great. And so as we were having these conversations, the thing about that guy is he's always trying to learn something. And so like you could see the wheels kind of turn in his mind. And over the months leading up to what I'm about to share, he was just kind of like, you could see him just kind of mulling over, like, how do I engage this? And so he told my coworker and I, he said, hey, I think I want to read the Bible. And he's like, first, I think I want to read the Torah, and then I'll read the Bible. And I'm like, well, you could get you a Bible, and the first 5 books are the Torah, so go ahead and read it, And he was like, well, where should I start? And I said, just start at the beginning. Mm-hmm. And he was like, okay. And so we tried to let him just read and discover the Word. And then as he had questions or whatever that we knew the answers to, we would talk to him, of course, about it and try to shed some light on it or different stories that he was reading. And so early on, he talked a lot through Genesis and just, oh man, I'm reading this or that, or Exodus and all of the stories there. And so it was really cool just to like have some of those discussions with him, and just kind of check in with him and see where he's at. And so after about 18 months or so, he wound up, he wasn't like steady in it every day. Like he was just kind of working through it.
Yeah.
And,
it takes time.
It takes time, especially when you're not a believer.
Right.
You're just kind of like learning this on the side. So I get it. So as he was moving on through that, he wound up taking a different job and moving away. And so it was like, man, I really hope he sticks with it. Well, he reached out periodically after he left and was like, hey, man, I'm in Leviticus or Numbers or whatever. And like, he would just kind of periodically text me and be like, hey, I'm still working on it. Yeah. And so I was like, man, God's moving in this guy. I'm pretty excited to see what's going to happen out of this. And so every time I would just ask him, like, what are you learning? And that kind of thing. And so he was finally coming back to town and he reached out and said, hey man, let's grab some lunch. And I said, okay. So we met up and at one of your favorite spots to eat barbecue. And
yeah, man.
And so we ran by there and had some barbecue, and it was really great to just sit and talk. And finally I'm like, so how's it going reading the Bible? And he was like, oh man, made it through the Torah. And, I'm on into these prophets. These guys are crazy. And so he was talking about all these prophets and stuff and what he was learning. And it was really cool. I wasn't trying to answer every question he had. I don't know all the answers.
Right.
I'm still learning myself too.
But
it was really cool. So he finally, when he went back home, a couple of days later, he sent me a text, and he listens to this stuff on audiobooks. And so I tried to point him at the YouVersion Bible app because it's pretty great. It'll read to you.
Yeah.
It's free. All the different things, different Bible Bible plans and studies and all that. So pretty useful. But he stuck with his audio book. He said he had a lot of hours on that thing. And so he sent me this text message. I wanted to read it to you.
Okay.
It says, I just finished Jeremiah and it burned up my audiobook hours. So now I got to wait until next month. That one was long. A lot of people around me getting interested in reading the Bible because I keep telling them when I finish a book. My brother-in-law goes to church every Sunday and was like, you're almost done with the Old Testament and I've never read it. And you aren't even religious. I should probably get on that. So my buddy, he concludes his text message and he said, weird person to be doing the Lord's work, huh? So here he is, not even a believer.
Right.
Realizing that he's doing the Lord's work because he's in the Word. And he hasn't even made it to the actual New Testament yet with Jesus in it.
Yeah.
He's seeing Jesus in the Old Testament. We try to point some of that stuff out to him, but it was just a great opportunity and a great reminder as we move into this Idol series of just being bold enough in our faith to just keep talking and keep sharing what we're learning. And for me and my buddy to reach out and just continue to have those conversations. But it's really cool to me to see how he's taken that faith and he's continuing to talk about what's going on. He's seen that and how you can just have that in conversation with believers.
Yeah.
And so he's learned that. And so he's walking that out and not being held back by not knowing or not being a believer. He's actually walking out a strong faith as he's becoming a believer. So it'll be interesting to see in the future how God continues to use him and mold him and shape him just through his word.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I appreciate you sharing that story, Chris. That's great. It's a good reminder there that, we can have those bold conversations with anybody, coworkers or anybody that we interact with in our lives. And, if God's using a non-believer to reach other people, I mean, wow, that's awesome, man. I mean, it's a great reminder that we serve a God that can do anything. So don't try to, pigeonhole or just, look at God in just in a limited capacity, because boy, he can do anything, man, including using a non-believer. So
that's right.
It's a pretty awesome story, man.
Yeah,
so
thanks.
Yeah, I hope that inspires people to go out there and do the same. So, and that's what this whole Left-Handed Shake's about, really, just to break down those walls of vulnerability and have that posture of just wanting to be, side by side and encourage people along the way. And so that's a great story to embody that.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt.
Absolutely, brother. So want to move on to our topic of the week. It's going to be, we're starting a new series on idols, modern day idols. This is week 1. And I want to share with you guys a little bit. So what kind of sparked this, we actually had early conversations back when we were even the brainstorming phases of this podcast about idols and so forth. And it, it just took time to develop. But I was actually inspired by a story that I heard from an author, a Christian author and writer, speaker, and podcaster, Jennifer Slattery, that I had heard from a friend of mine back in January. I want to read that short story for you guys right here. Here it goes. I like my large almond milk, vanilla flavored latte. I love soft pillows and air conditioning and easy access to the internet. I enjoy eating ice cream while watching Netflix. Many times I choose these modern comforts over crossing the street to initiate a conversation with a neighbor. I prefer an extra hour of sleep over getting up early to serve in the nursery on Sunday morning. I prefer beach vacations to participating in disaster reliefs and sitting with my friends during church over enduring the social awkwardness to reach out to a stranger. In short, I often elevate my comfort over my obedience, over the gospel, and whatever holds us in higher priority in my heart than Jesus. This then becomes an idol. I've found the only way to escape the idol of comfort is to intentionally embrace something that makes me uncomfortable, initiate conversation with someone different than me, serve in an area I feel ill-equipped, or donate my latte money to help fund international missions. Jesus is the antidote to every idol that infiltrates my heart. The more I lean into him, prioritize my time with him, and surrender to him, the more he fills me to the deepest, darkest crevices within me until there is room for nothing else. Great story there. And that is what's going to be our first idol, is the idol of comfort. It's one that is it's advertised and everything, and it's what we probably seek the most out of, at least in the Western world, it seems like. Everything is to make us life more convenient, right?
Right.
Make it easier, make it more comfortable, right?
That's right.
But what are we sacrificing for that comfort?
Yeah, yeah. I think you kind of hit it right on the head, because when in our culture it pushes so much to find that comfort. A lot of us will find comfort in our money, how much money you got in the bank, in our homes. Do you have real estate? Our cars. We'll find comfort in our jobs, or all of our relationships, or our health, or our status. And so when we're in this world, it's constantly pushing that. To your point, like, I know around here it gets plenty warm during the summertime, and so those heating and air guys are out there.
Oh yeah,
and half those companies have comfort in the name.
right.
Right. So, I mean, it's there. Look at your furniture you buy. Typically the name has something to do with comfort or cozy or whatever. And it's just trying to entice you in. I know coming into the holiday season, we're going to see lots of cozy pajamas and coats and blankets and all the things, warm fires and everything to make us comfortable. And so, it's not inherently evil.
No.
And it's one of those too where, the Holy Spirit's often referred to in the Bible as the Comforter. And so we don't have to look at these things as being evil. But the problem is that those things it seems to never be enough.
Right.
Like, we're just constantly chasing those things, and the world is selling those things, whether it's, as you mentioned, the vacations or advertisements, different companies, like I said. It's never enough. We're constantly chasing comfort. And so I think that's where we really have to watch what we're doing with it. And so, as we're talking about it, it's one of those where I just wanted to know what Jesus has to say.
Right.
Ultimately, it's his word that we really need to be leaning into and relying on. So in Matthew 16, 24 through 26, Jesus told his disciples, "If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his own life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Or what shall a man give in return for his soul?" That's in Matthew 16 again. So I think we just got to weigh what that cost is. Are we really chasing comfort, or are we chasing Jesus? And so it's easy to get distracted. And that leads straight into, what is the definition of an idol? This whole series we're about to kick off, or we're kicking off today with this episode, is about idols. Yeah. And so I think, much like we've done in other series, Matt, I think we need to have a good working definition of the terms we're talking about. And so,
For sure.
An idol, we're gonna say, is any object, physical object, image, or concept that's given the worship, devotion, or importance rightfully belonging to God, while often referring to statues and images of false gods made by human hands, like the golden calf. The concept extends to anything, wealth, power, people, even possessions, that takes God's place in our hearts and in our lives.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a pretty wide definition, and it should be, because there are so many idols that we have. We're going to cover quite a few in this series, of course, starting with comfort today. But there's just so many things that we can put in place of God in our life, and there's probably never been a time in history than there's been as many options as we have today, right? So I think it's important to identify what those are, and we're going to talk about some practical steps that you guys can use to identify the idols that are in your lives, so we can in turn turn those back to Jesus and our Savior, because we are desperately in need of Him.
That's right.
So I think we talked about, you just mentioned the golden calf, right? So I think that's a great example in Scripture. We were thinking of some examples for you guys. There's quite a few, of course, in Scripture, but that one we thought was really good, because that was the point where they were the Egyptians, or the Israelites, had left Egypt, and were in Mount Sinai, and waiting on God, waiting on Moses, and just got tired of waiting, really. And so they were more willing to go back into the bondage of the Egyptians than to pursue God even further. God asked them to wait, and they decided, no, we want to take matters in our own hands, and we'd rather just go back to the bondage. So not only did they, and then we created a golden calf, of course, while Moses was away. So they wanted something to replace. They wanted something to replace Jesus, essentially, and they chose this golden calf, which is weird, I think, at least by today's standards. But the puzzling thing to me about the whole situation is they were willing to go back into bondage. Not only were they, it's one thing where they weren't actually choosing comfort; they were actually choosing bondage, even worse.
Right. Yeah, it's almost like they were finding their comfort in the known, right? Like they knew what to expect from being held there in Egypt and being slaves, working and building, making bricks or whatever they were doing. They knew what they were, they knew they had food. You'll hear them throughout the Old Testament saying that. Like, are you trying to kill us out here in the desert? And like, what's going on? At least we had food and all the things we needed, back in Egypt. And so they're constantly referring to the things that they knew instead of leaning in and trusting God to provide for them and relying on Him.
Yeah. And that you can that example actually is great, because so many people today still, kind of create their own little prison, so to speak, and their own little bondage. And our enemy loves that. He loves to keep us in that space, and that's where you see folks that are in, endless cycles of where they just can't get out, cycles of abuse or addiction, poverty, all kinds of things where they just, continue to do the same things they've always done, even though they know it inflicts pain on themselves, and it's painful. It's sad, really. But there's many examples in our culture today that people do this, and I don't think there's enough ways to get people out of that, but we know the best way and the only way truly is through Jesus.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, as we were talking about it, Matt, I was thinking about in Matthew 4, 22 through 20, or 18 through 22, Jesus in this scene is walking by the Sea of Galilee, and he sees these two brothers, Simon, who's called Peter, and his brother Andrew, and they're casting nets into the sea because they're fishermen. And so he says to them, "Follow me, and I'll make you fishers of men." And it says that they immediately left their nets and followed him. And then going on from there, they see two more brothers, James the son of Zebedee and John his brother. They're in the boat with Zebedee their father, and they're mending their nets. And so he called to them, and immediately they left their boat and their father and followed him. And so for me, it's one of those where these guys were out there doing their family business, doing what they knew, left their Jesus walking down the beach is like, "Hey, come on, I'm going to teach you to fish for men."
Right.
They see him as like a rabbi. They see him as a teacher from that. Like, hey, he's calling me. And in their culture, that's a big deal. Yeah. These guys, they had already failed out of school, and they're back at the family business. And so as they're out here fishing and preparing to go fishing again with their dad, notice that the Zebedee doesn't say anything about it. Like, doesn't try to stop them, doesn't try to change their mind. Like, he recognizes that this is a rabbi, this is a teacher, and sees Jesus and is like, okay, like, maybe they're getting promoted now, and they have this opportunity to go learn from a teacher. They don't necessarily know who Jesus is yet, but they just obediently hop straight up and out of the boat, let's go. And so I think too often we get stuck in that, like you were talking earlier, the Israelites stuck in what they know and that comfort. And here these four guys, they jumped at the opportunity to come and follow Jesus. And, it kind of makes you question, like, where are we in that cycle? Are we stuck in the comfort, or are we stuck following Jesus?
Right. Because ultimately to follow God, we have to leave that comfort zone. I mean, he calls us to unfamiliar places. We have to, and he does that to help us to be dependent on him, like the Israelites. He had called them to leave Egypt and go to his holy land, the promised land. But there was some costs they had to pay along the way. They had to learn to be dependent on him, on the food that he was going to provide every day, and it teaches obedience. So I think that's a great example. The Egyptians there and the fishermen, because they both had a choice to make, right? One group, the Egyptians, they didn't want to wait on God. They didn't like being dependent on him. They wanted, even if it Even if it was bondage, so be it. It was at least what we knew, right? It was the lesser evil, I guess, the known evil, I guess, right? As were the fishermen, they were comfortable, and they were professional fishermen. They knew what they were doing,
Right.
but they also knew that they wanted more in life, and they knew that through growth had to come through through uncomfortability,
Right.
And that's what they chose.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So I like that because ultimately, if we want to find God's blessings, it's on the other side of those comfort zones. We got to get through, punch through those difficult, uncomfortable situations in order to find that blessing from God.
Yeah. Yeah. It's on the backside of the trials.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah. Disciples are a great example of that, obviously. They had to endure, quite a bit, obviously. But ultimately, that's how they found that's how they obviously got to be with Jesus and learn all that growth and everything they experienced through him. There's a lot of lessons that we could learn from that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think, as we're talking about stepping out of that comfort zone, that means we're going to step into the uncomfortable.
Right.
And Matt, as we were preparing for this episode, I was really trying to think of something that really resonated with me to kind of get this point across. And it has multiple angles, so just bear with me as I kind of talk about this, and then we can talk about how those angles are after I finished up with it.
You got it.
You know me, Matt, and I love hunting.
Right.
I love being out in the woods. I love all of that work out there that it takes to prepare the land, to attract the game. In my case, I'm trying to attract deer, white-tailed deer. Of course, we get feral hogs and all the things along the way, and so we get to see a lot of just different animals while we're out there. And hunting is pretty tricky. I like to bow hunt, which means you got to be that much closer.
Right.
And even more sneaky. So I've been trying to up my ninja skill ability. And it just means you got to really take advantage of every situation that you can.
Right.
And so over the years that I've been hunting, I've learned that one of my favorite times to hunt is during a rainstorm.
Oh.
And so there's a lot of times where in the past when I was a young hunter, a new hunter, I would look at the radar, or wake up in the tent at the hunting lease and realize like it's pouring down rain and this is going to suck.
Yeah.
And I'm nice and warm and cozy in my sleeping bag, and I've got food in the cooler, and I can just hang out right here at camp and stay dry. And when the storm passes, then I could sneak on out there and, maybe get lucky and catch, shoot a deer, catch a deer, as my wife likes to tell me. And so what I learned was, deer are a lot like us in a lot of aspects. And one of the things that they're like us, while they might be out there, they're not undercover in a tent or in a house or whatever, but like they're going to find a place that's nice and warm, snuggly and safe. And so as that storm's raging, all the lightning and thunder, wind, the rain, they're going to find a place to kind of bed down and get out of that element just a little bit. And when it's raining like that, it's storming, deer senses are not quite what they normally would be. And so deer have amazing eyesight. They're constantly on the look for things moving around. They can hear really well. Yeah. Their ears flicker back and forth like a cat or a dog. They hear extremely well. But their biggest tool, their biggest weapon in their arsenal is their nose. And so they can bust you with their nose from a long ways out. I think their nose is like 700 times more sensitive than ours.
Wow.
And so it doesn't take a whole lot of our scent for them to catch you. And so I spray down with the scent blocker. I wear clothes that help hold my scent in. I wash my clothes so they don't smell, like in the dye-free, scent-free, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so
right.
I'm not bringing extra smell with me to the woods.
Yeah.
Try not to sweat a whole lot. All the different things that I can do to help not bring any smell with me. Definitely not eating the bacon burritos at camp. Not cooking that stuff and dragging it out to the woods.
Right.
So when I go out there, normally I have to spray down with this stuff and be like extra sneaky. With the rainstorms, it's a little different because I can look at the radar and see the storm, see all the things going on out there. Mm-hmm. And I can time it to where I know where I want to go and I know where I think the deer are. and where I need to be, because if they've been bedded down all night, they're probably going to be hungry,
Yeah.
right? They're going to need to meet some of those needs. And so I know if I can intercept them all in that way, there's a good chance that I might be successful in this hunt. And so what I'll do is I will go out while it's pouring down rain. I'll put on some gear and go out there, and yeah, I'm getting soaked to the bone. And keep in mind, it's probably like, dark 30, 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So I'll traipse on out there through the mud and all the muck and be real quiet as I can. But the rain falling in the woods makes a lot of noise. And the wind blowing in the woods makes a lot of noise. And everything's moving. And so it's hard for those deer to hear what's going on. It's hard for them to see what's going on, especially because it's dark.
Right.
All the movement happening, it's just really confusing to them. And on top of that, with the rain falling, it softened the leaves up so they can't hear me. And it knocks down my scent out of the air and kind of washes it away. And so now it's like I'm walking through invisible. And so there's been a lot of opportunities that I've gotten to watch deer and harvest deer because I've been able to use that rain and that storm to get really close to them. So I'm in the place where they least expect it, where they feel safe. And then when they stand up and start to move towards the things that they need or they think they need, that's when I can make my move and strike. And so, like I said, I've been successful doing that over the years.
Yeah.
And it's because I've taken advantage of what's going on in the environment, and I've taken advantage mostly of their need for comfort or their want and desire for comfort. And so me being uncomfortable, getting out and getting wet, meant that them, when they finally get up, I can take advantage of that. And so there's several different angles that we could use pertaining towards the podcast today of comfort and how that can be used for or against you.
Yeah, I like that, man. A great story, Chris. I'm thinking of a few angles right off the bat. I mean, obviously the deer, all their senses, are blinded, basically, muted, because of their desire for comfort.
That's
right. It makes me think, how much when we are comfortable, how much are we losing out on the blessings of God?
Right.
How it is God. Seems like maybe he's getting annoyed with us, It's like, come on, really, more day of comfort, how much do you need of this, right? So, it just our complacency and our comfort is the first the first thing I notice in your story, that comfort's costing us.
That's right.
So
that's right. And for me, I think that when you find that comfortable, safe spot, and then you have that storm raging outside, it seems so much easier just to sit at home. It's Sunday morning, you're supposed to be getting ready for church or whatever. And it's like, man, there's a big storm raging out there. Like, I can just watch it online.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to do that.
Or we can just go to breakfast. We can just do something here or whatever, I can go back to sleep.
Yeah, I'll catch it next week. It'll be all right. And we tend to put things off like that and just kind of blow it off.
Yeah.
And, the enemy's sitting right there as the hunter going, I got you.
Right.
And so, it doesn't take a whole lot of work for him to knock you back down when we're letting comfortability rule in our lives. And so I think, it's easy to see it from that deer perspective. But when you look at it from the hunter perspective, right, the enemy is taking advantage of that comfort. And so he's focused on keeping people comfortable. But the ones of us that are not willing to just sit still, the ones of us that are willing to step out and be uncomfortable, we can take that fight to the enemy. And we talked about that in previous episodes.
Yep.
And so this is where we get to go on the offensive, and we get to, much like on my left-handed shake today, we get to share the gospel with other people. We get to share God's word with other people. And so we're taking aim at somebody that's comfortable, and we're going to make ourselves uncomfortable so that we can bring the word to them. Yeah,
absolutely. That's great, man. You're right. And that's what the enemy is, he's just lurking, prowling around, waiting for us, and while we're being comfortable, he's totally fine with that because he knows that, we're not fulfilling our promise with God, and, he's there to strike. So that's great, man. And I know I know it's not easy to want to get out of comfortability. I mean, it's so prevalent in our world today that, you know, you think, oh, Matt, Chris, this sounds great, but for me, it's just really hard to do because of this and that. You know, look, you can always make excuses, you know, there's always ways, you know, that you can step out of that comfort zone and try to, you know, see what God wants for you. I mean, and for me, I know that, you know, I've been through a lot, you know, in my life, and we've shared a lot on these different episodes and everything. But one thing I've learned through life is that the best growth, the most growth, comes out of uncomfortability, you know, and stretching yourself. And it's gotten to the point now where I just seek that out, really. Hence this podcast, obviously, right? I mean, let's start there. I don't think this isn't extremely comfortable for either one of us. You know, this is not something that we were like, ooh, podcast, ooh, that sounds great, you know? So we had to pray on it. We had to allow God to work in us to take these type of steps. And even though 20 episodes now deep, geez, we still make mistakes. We still, we still, you know, don't look back and, man, I wish I would have said something differently or whatever. Yeah. So, we're still trying to polish that off, but nonetheless, it's something that, you know, we felt like we needed to do because this is what God called us to do.
That's right. Yeah. If we had stuck with the comfortable, you know, you and I'd be watching football today and, you know, eating chicken wings or something and just kind of relaxing. And here we are, you know, when we're recording this today, it's a Sunday.
Right.
And so, you know, it's a great opportunity for us to be together, to fellowship together doing this. But when we go on our platform where we launch these podcasts and where they're stored, it's got a pretty cool function where it'll show us the different numbers, like how many downloads we've had and all those kind of things. And I don't say any of this to pat ourselves on the back or to try to bring recognition to us, because we're trying to recognize God and give him all the glory.
Right.
In this, it's encouraging to find those numbers. You know, we took a little bit of a break over the last few weeks. I know I was sick and all the things, and just kind of slowed us up. And it was one of those where getting back on the mics was kind of challenging and finding a good time to do that. And so, but we've been able to see a lot of growth even in the podcast with the listenership. And so seeing people, you know, our friends out in Amarillo have listened, across the country up in Michigan, you know, East Coast, West Coast. We've seen them in the Netherlands, Africa, Dubai, Philippines. We've seen pop up from all over the place on that website that is hosting our podcast. And so it's been really encouraging to me to see like God's using you and I, you know, right here making these recordings, you know, putting forth the energy to study and to figure out what we want to say, and then just giving us the words to speak to grow our faith, but also grow the faith of our listeners. And I'm just really grateful for that opportunity. And, you know, we could have easily just said, nah, somebody else could do that, you know, and there are a lot of folks running podcasts out there. But I think that this podcast brings a lot to the table and reaches a lot of folks, and we're getting to see that.
Absolutely, man. We just want to put out a honest, transparent, authentic type approach, you know, and that's just the way we want to do it. And I appreciate you sharing those stats and all that stuff. And that's not meant to brag, like Chris was saying. It's just to encourage you guys to see, you know, like if you take the first step into something uncomfortable that God's calling you to do, you could see it grow, you know, it's awesome, you know, and then when you can look back on it like we are here, coming up on a year down doing this pretty soon, that you were starting to see some fruit from it, you know. So our relationship with God is grown, with each other, with our families, our wives, our kids, other people. We've met some awesome people that we've got to share with and to pray for and to lift up and encourage. So it wouldn't have happened unless we took that first step of uncomfortability. You know? So,
absolutely.
So I would encourage everybody out there to think about that, you know, and see, you know, pray that where God wants you to be used. And that it could be in a ministry type thing like this. It might be something else, you know, ultimately. But just think about the situation, like what are you sacrificing for, you know, for what are you giving up, I guess, for that comfort, you know?
Right.
So
that's right. I think you hit a great point right there, Matt, in saying that. Like, what are you giving up? As we were getting ready to come on and record this episode today, I told you, I said, man, I don't know if I want to add this verse in there today. And man, you just opened the door for it. So I
All
appreciate that. The Holy Spirit's moving
There
here
we
with us,
go.
buddy. So this is out of Luke 14. And on my Bible, the header says, the cost of discipleship.
Okay.
And this is Jesus talking. It says, now great crowds accompanied him, and he turned to them and said, if anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. He goes on to say, whoever does not bear his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. For which of you desiring to build a tower does not first sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he's laid the foundation and is not able to finish, all who see it begin to mock him, saying, this man began to build and was not able to finish. Or what king going out to encounter another king in war will not sit down first and deliberate whether he's able to do with 10,000 to meet him who comes against him with 20,000? And if not, while the others still yet far away off, sends a delegation and asks for terms of peace. So therefore, any one of you who does not renounce all that he has cannot be my disciple. Following Jesus is going to cost us something.
Mm-hmm.
And so it may be this idol of comfort like we're talking about today.
Yeah.
Jesus is calling us just like he called those disciples out of that boat. They didn't know what was going on. He just said, follow me.
Right.
He's saying the same to us. And so it's going to cost you something. It could cost you friendships or relationships. It could cost you monies or jobs or in all kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, what we gain from following Jesus far surpasses what we're giving up.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And there's people across the world that are persecuted right now as we record this, due to their faith. They're willing to give up everything for Jesus.
Right.
Are you willing to give up your latte money? I mean, let's put it in perspective. These are people that are losing their lives, and we don't even want to get up and go to church on a random Sunday morning. I mean,
Yep.
let's put things in perspective a bit. So. We have so much to be thankful for in the Western world and here and just anywhere really that we just need to take full advantage of. And and God's blessings, they come in different shapes and sizes and experiences we never could imagine. I mean, you got to think that perhaps the trial you're going through or whatever you're experiencing in your life, and you're praying to get out of it, God's maybe asking you to leave that comfort. To step into something in order to find what you're praying for. He's willing. He's standing there patiently knocking at the door. Are you going to get up? Like I know I prayed for years for God to help me grow my faith and bring experiences in my life that would help me grow my faith and be a stronger believer and know Him more. I ended up with cancer, right? So I mean. That's not really what I was hoping for when I prayed those prayers, but it did exactly what those prayers were asking for.
Yeah.
Right. So I think we just got to be willing to look at things from a godly perspective and a heavenly mindset as opposed to our limitations that we have in this world,
Yeah.
If we think that everything's just going to come, the skies are going to part and the angels are going to come down and give you everything you want without any with no cost to it. I mean, that's foolish thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We typically receive those blessings how we least expected them to come.
Exactly.
Much to your point there, your faith grew the most coming out of that extreme trial.
Mm-hmm.
And, I know it did in my life as well. Going through just bad relationship and all the struggle and heartache that came from that. And just realizing like God was using that to mold me and shape me into the man He wanted me to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wasn't easy, and it was very painful, but it was an opportunity to decide to get out of the comfort zone and go follow Him.
Right. And so if you're out there, if you're struggling with a situation, you're struggling in some sort of addiction or abuse or just illness or anything like that, pray for God to get you out of that, but just be willing to take whatever measures He feels need, that are measures He feels that are right to get there,
Right.
So we can't have selectivity, say, okay, God, I'm praying for this, but you gave me that. I'm like, I don't know, God, can you give me something else? Can we do that a different way?
Yeah.
You can't do that. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Well, it's a good reminder that it's not our will, it's his will.
Right.
And even when you think about Jesus in the garden, before his crucifixion, he's there. Mm-hmm. He's one member of the Trinity.
Right.
He's there. He's still praying to the Father, asking like, hey, if we don't have to do this, I'd prefer not to do it this way.
Right.
Because he's the one about to take the pain and the beatings. And, he still surrendered that to God. And it was like, it's your will, not mine. Mm-hmm. And so he was willing to do that and to give himself to be obedient to God's will. And so it's definitely not going to come in the most expected way. But if we're obedient, we'll get to see God's will.
That's right, man. And this has been a great episode, man. And I've really enjoyed this. And this has been just a tip of the iceberg where we're going next, brother. So just want to talk next about, how are we going to live this out?
Yeah. So for this week, how to live it out. Number one is identify when choosing comfort over sacrifice. Does my choice of comfort lead me to or away from God? And so we just got to figure out which direction are we heading there. And so we just got to constantly be striving to leave the comfort and draw closer to him.
That's right. And we got to decide to put God first in our lives. Like John 3:30, more of him, less of us. He is the ultimate comforter. We need to find that comfort in him. And who knows what that looks like for you? That could be a lot of different things. If you might be thinking, well, I don't really have, I'm always pushing myself to do something, Matt, Chris. Well, hey, keep pushing, try to do something hard every day, every week,
That's right.
Find out what it is for you and lean into that.
Yeah, for sure. And for our third, how to live it out for the week, it's share with someone where you trust comfort more than God. It's going to be really hard. And then change it.
Yeah.
So step into that and choose uncomfortability. So be bold. Find that safe space. Find that person that you can share that with where you're chasing comfort more than God, and then change it. Start chasing God in that area.
That's right. Flip it. Flip the script, man. If you're struggling in some place, flip the script. Turn it over to God, see what he asks, and replace it with something that he wants, not the world does.
That's right.
Because we know that the enemy's lurking out there. He's outside the door all the time. Not to be fearful. Our God is victorious in the end. But you have to recognize the situation that too much comfort is a bad thing. So I've enjoyed this episode, man. We're going to come back with next time's version of the next episode about modern day idols coming here real soon. So I pray everybody get something out of this episode here. So please continue to listen, share, like this, let everybody know that, hey, this is a great, authentic podcast that we're bringing people in. If anybody has any questions, comments, concerns, prayer requests, hit us up. Find us, hit us up. We'd love to hear from you. But in the meantime, keep grinding.